Quick story. You've been saving for a down payment. You've cut the subscriptions, packed lunch, done everything the last video told you probably wouldn't be enough on its own, and you've got a number in your head, 20%. Because that's the rule, right? 20% down or you're not really ready. Here's the first thing that's going to surprise you. That number is basically a myth. The median first-time buyer in the US puts down about 9 to 10%, not 20. Whole loan programs exist at 3% down, 3.5% down, some at 0. You've been holding yourself to a standard almost nobody actually meets. But that's not even the real story. The real story is stranger than you're saving wrong. The real story is that the thing you're saving for doesn't really exist anymore. Picture the house your parents bought as their first home. Modest, a few bedrooms, a yard, nothing fancy, just a starting point. Something to build equity in before trading up. That house, as a category, as something builders actually make, has been quietly engineered out of existence. In the early 1980s, starter homes made up about 40% of new home construction in America. By 2019, that number had fallen to around 7%. Harvard's housing researchers estimate that nearly 40% of America's entire starter home stock has disappeared since 1980. Not gotten more expensive? Disappeared. Builders stopped making them. This isn't a story about laziness or greed, whichever side you want to blame. It's a story about math. In the 1970s, homes with 4 or more bedrooms were about 1 in 5 new builds. By 2022, they were almost half. Why would builders do that if smaller homes are what young buyers actually want and can afford? Because in most places, it's barely legal and barely profitable to build small anymore. Minimum lot sizes, parking requirements, permitting costs that can run close to a quarter of a home's total price. Add in land costs, and a builder can lose money on a modest house on the exact same lot where a bigger house turns a healthy profit. So the small house stops getting built. Not because nobody wants it, because the system stopped rewarding anyone for making it. That's one half of the squeeze. Here's the other half, and it's even less talked about. Roughly half of all mortgages in America right now are locked in below 4% interest. Rates on a new mortgage today sit around 6 to 6.5. That gap sounds like a technical detail. It is actually one of the biggest reasons you can't find a house. Because the people who normally sell their smaller, older, more affordable home to move up into something bigger, the exact homes that would become available to first-time buyers, aren't moving. Selling means giving up a 4% rate for a 6.5% one. For a lot of people, that's an extra several $100s a month, just for the privilege of moving house. So they stay put. And the starter homes that do still exist stay off the market year after year. Builders aren't making small homes. Owners aren't selling the small homes they already have. That's not a coincidence stacking on a coincidence. That's two structural forces pointing the same direction at the same time in your direction. Meanwhile, the actual price to income math has been quietly getting worse the entire time. Home prices are up roughly 50% since 2020. Incomes over that same stretch are up around 29%. That 21-point gap isn't a feeling. It's the whole affordability crisis in one number. So if you felt like you're chasing a target that keeps moving, you were right. The starting line for home ownership didn't just get more expensive. The starting line itself got removed from the map and quietly redrawn somewhere further out. Here's where this stops being just another depressing housing video though, because unlike a lot of what drives this crisis, there are real, specific things you can actually do with this information. First, stop budgeting your life around 20% down. It was never the real rule. 3 to 5% down payment programs are common, well established, and not a red flag to lenders. If a friend or a parent contributes toward a down payment, that's not cheating the system. Over a quarter of young first-time buyers get some family help, and it's simply become part of how home ownership works now. The shame you might feel about that is inherited from a rule that stopped being true. Second, run the actual math on waiting versus buying smaller and sooner. If you spend 2 or 3 extra years saving for a bigger down payment while home prices keep climbing even modestly, the price increase can wipe out most or all of what you save by waiting. Sometimes the responsible choice to wait is the one costing you the most. Third, widen what starter home means to you. The 1,000 square foot house on a big lot that your parents bought is largely gone as new construction. What's replacing it? Townhomes, smaller lot homes, condos. Some markets seeing a real uptick in entry-level inventory isn't the same thing. It's not worse either. It's just different. And pretending it should look like 1985 is part of what's kept people stuck. Fourth, pay attention to the lock-in effect easing. not just interest rates. As more owners with sub 5% mortgages eventually decide they have to move anyway, a death in the family, a job change, a divorce, simply getting tired of waiting, more of that frozen inventory starts coming back onto the market. That's not something you can control, but it's something you can watch for and time around instead of finding out about it after the fact. None of this means the system is fair. It isn't. But unfair and impossible are different words, and a lot of people are quietly treating this crisis as the second one when it's actually the first. You are not behind because you lack discipline. You're navigating a market where the entry-level product was deliberately phased out, and half the existing supply is being held off the market by a rate gap that has nothing to do with you. Once you actually see that, the moves change. You stop chasing a 20% number that was never real. You stop comparing your house search to a version of the market that doesn't exist anymore. And you start making decisions based on how this system actually works, which was always the point of this channel in the first place. Next video, healthcare. Why the thing that's supposed to protect you financially is, for a lot of Americans, the single fastest way to go broke. And the handful of decisions that actually change that math. Subscribe if you want to see it.